Hey guys, it's Pepe Armando, and today we have Senator Scarlet Scarf. We're gonna do the 6th and 5th days, and then we're gonna go head into what's ever next. So, let's go. 6 days left until the epidemic. We brothers of Saint Elmo don't have drinks in the morning. Richard talks through his teeth and frowns, all to try and seem more strict, but it seems he's just another lodger for old Magda. Not one of the brothers, not a senator, not a hangman, and of course not a savior. More of a grandkid to be wined, dined, and well cared for to prevent him from losing weight. It's hard for Richard to acknowledge, but after the fear and hatred, after the futile, heart-wrenching hope, and the following bitter disappointment, after everything he had seen in the eyes of the commoners during the years of servitude, he likes Magda's attitude. That's why the brother does not want to quarrel with the old lady. He knows he'll hurt them both if he snaps and rudely shows her place in the strict Tentarian hierarchy. But Magda continues to fuss over him.
How come, my dear? It's customary here in Restot. From time immemorial it is so. Beer in the morning won't get you drunk, only help your stomach wake up. Even my grandpa taught so.
Trying to distract him from this embarrassment, Richard imagines the drunkard who once lived in this house. Must have been a good old man. Richard never had relatives. He had the surname Murdoch, but no family, only the Brotherhood. With Zentaria as her mother and and Elmo as her father, all good people from the frozen taiga to the shining milky mountains will call you brother. The high-flown words of the testament echo in his mind. No ale, no wine, no sleeper forbid moonshine. Brew me the herbs, Magda. The old lady looks at him sympathetically and nods her gray head with concern.
Got stiff fowls, darling? You can say it straight. There's no need to be shy. I'll call you in no time.
Not that brew. Another one. The one for the hangover. While the old lady tried to digest this contradictory demand, Richard noticed his shadow slowly coming to life. It ripples and detaches from the wall. The pale northern sunlight had pressed it against. Shoo! Richard hisses, but the shadow has already awakened. It distorts and changes into the most grotesque forms, threatening to swallow the unsuspecting Magda or cut her apart with sharp, bird-like claws. Hey, get out!
Why do you talk to old Magda that way, grandkid? Hangover brew, so be it.
Richard feels awkward and lies in response. It was a cat sitting on the window. Magda turns around at last. The tranquil light of the last warm days of autumn fall through the dim, dusty window. It plays with the floating specks of dust and gleams off the jars of glass and copper. And only Richard and Magda stand in its way, casting two straight still shadows on the plaster wall. That was the 6th day before the epidemic. On to the 5th day. 5 days left until the epidemic. Oh, here we are in a room. Richard steps silently under the countless arches of his dreams' passages. The ringing of bells attracts them, drives them into the dust-coated chambers. Their owner, Anja, stays frozen, turned aside, pretending the senator's coming means nothing to her. But Richard knows it is not so. His attention darts to her new creation, a huge, monstrous birdcage with the gates bent outward like the ribs of an autopsied cadaver. The senator is used to the shadow's grotesque creations, the most vivid combinations of forms and images. Hadn't he seen them for years already? Today, however, Anja manages to impress him. What is it? Anja sighs and throws a brief glance at her guest.
No, no greeting, no thanks from you, as usual.
Despite the unfriendly words, the tone of her voice tells Richard she is pleased with the question. I like it, but something's missing. The senator isn't generous with his compliments, expecting a catch. Anja, as if expecting such a review, flashes a ragged smile and turns into smoke almost indefinitely. A trembling gust of it slides from the eerie chair, flying to the cage. A moment later, a bizarre black bird treads the bone perch. Gah! She cries as she unfurls her mighty wings, slaps them against the bars, and bangs her beak on the metal. Ah, now I see. Well, I should have guessed. Will you sit in this cage now? Hoo-hoo! The bird answers and swirls with clusters of open eyes. Richard sighs wearily, not impressed by that smoldering stare of a dozen pupils. Why do you keep asking for it again and again, Anja? Don't you know the commandments? The shadow bends lazily, sliding out of the cage in a stream of smoke, flowing through the bars like a mist, and adopting her human form again.
I know they were never inviolable, Richard. I know all brothers violate them. You teach us, pamper us, let us out into the world.
Richard raises his finger as if his words were a quote from the St. Elmo's Codex. I am not the one accountable for my brothers. Am I to be their watchman?
Stop talking to me that way. I'm not your toy.
Richard frowns, lips pursing a thin line, wrinkles cracking across his forehead betwixt his brows. He then throws his hands up, showing that her accusations have nothing to do with him. You should not look through my eyes now, Anga. This isn't about the commandments. This is about what you feel, what you desire. The shadow turns around, avoiding looking him in the eye. The senator knows how angry she is. He must not leave her in such a state. You should not hold on to your anger. Poison yourself. Obsess over impossible dreams. Trust me, I care about you. Without letting him finish, she turns around and hurls herself at him like a black cat, scratching and striking.
You idiot! She roars. To the sea with your carrying! Let the tenebrae feast on your commandments. I only wish to live.
Richard waits without defending himself. His strikes weaken, as if Anja was beating herself and not him. He is still calm, strict, showing none of his feelings on the surface. I'll do anything to keep you alive, he says, even if you don't believe me or don't have the patience. All to keep you from knowing the sea. I promise. She slumps against his chest, clutching his shoulders with sharp fingers.
Is there really no other way?
Her eyes silently ask. Richard only shakes his head. It is not time. I have no influence, no ink, no power. Vigilant eyes watch us all. He holds Anja and looks into her eyes. The seal pulsates between them. Trust me. Together, we will make it to the end, and we'll be able to bypass it. Anja swells in his arms and rises triumphantly. Her shining eyes nearly throw sparks.
Your promise was honest. I felt it. I heard it. You were not lying.
Could I? Richard smiles, hiding a bitter pang.
Then go ahead. Act. Justify my trust.
Richard awakens, bringing the precious grain of the promise with him. Oh, he did not fib. There are ways to keep his promise. and he'll find them.
Okay, so we've gone through all these. So we have Richard, Anja. That's how I'm gonna pronounce it. It's either Anga, Anja, or Anga. However you guys want to pronounce it in your heads. I'm just gonna pronounce it as Anja. So we got 6. We got Richard, Anja. We got the dude and the kid. Well, he's like a frail version of all the other senators. And then we got the dude who's in the towns that is putting the stuff on the doors. And then we got the kid back again, where he's like, all right, this is my last house that I have to do. Hopefully nothing goes wrong. And then he steps on a crow that is dead on the ground, and no one knows why. And then the red scarf appears, and I have no idea what the hell the red scarf is about. So, let's get into the rest of this.
Are you ready? Huh? Oh. The hours just before dawn are the quietest. Carriage wheels aren't rattling on the pavement, and neighborhood goodwives aren't gossiping while leaning out of their windows. Even the birds sound too timid as they start their morning songs. Only a few windows, those of the rich people's houses, are lit with lamplight. The servants in there tiptoe around quietly, cooking breakfast and cleaning their master's clothes. And then, the dawn rises in the east. The gentle sunlight paints the pavement, wet from the morning dew, gold and pink. A new day has come. People's voices and the creak of shutters can be heard over the light-hearted chirping of the birds. The shutters open one after the other, like the wooden eyelids of the town, letting the warm sunlight in. A cold drought is creeping through the cracks in the window frame. Richard Murdoch cringes as he tries to find a warm spot in his narrow bed. Sleep clings to his eyelids with its soft fingers, warms his temples, and begs him to stay for a minute or two. Don't listen to the morning drowse. You will be cheated. The trickster will steal your morning freshness and vanish, leaving you with a heavy head and a bad mood. Richard gets out of bed, shakes off his drowsiness, and puts his clothes on while listening to old Martha clinking the dishes downstairs. While waiting for his breakfast, he looks out the window, casually counting the plumes of smoke billowing up towards the sky. The wind smells of dampness and burnt leaves, the usual autumnal fragrance, yet something in it feels off. A timid knock on the door comes at last. Martha's fear used to hurt him, and it took him some time to understand and forgive the commoner's attitude. His breakfast is waiting behind the door. There is warm bread and sliced cheese, a boiled egg, some greens, garlic, and a mug of steaming herbal infusion. A simple, homely meal hardly fit for a man of his standing, but Richard always puts his habits before his status. Sipping the flavorsome drink, Richard grins as he recalls his argument with the housekeeper. For quite a while, the poor woman simply refused to realize that starting a new day with a pint of beer is against his grain, and tried to wine and dine him properly. He had to coldly reprimand her, but the fresh, minty aftertaste and the tranquil vigor were worth it. Naturally, he had to collect and prepare the herbs himself. Even the local herbalists, whom one would expect to be well versed in their craft, turned out to be rather ignorant when it came to something other than laxatives and hangover remedies. If it weren't for the greenhouses of the Brotherhood Fortress and his own foraging in the forest, Richard would have long forgotten the taste of his favorite cordial. After finishing his breakfast, Richard heads downstairs out into the inner yard. Here, a rickety shed covered in the shadows of a sprawling old apple tree is where he keeps his workwear. Right there. It's not quite so easy to put it on every day. The first thing he puts on is a greasy ointment, which has a slight swampy odor to it. Richard rubs it on his wrists, knees, and neck. It's a fairly extravagant concoction, but an effective one. The smell of this ointment is repulsive to the blood-sucking insects. After that, with the greatest precautions, soft leather gauntlets are put on. Well worn with years of labor, wide flared cuffs make them look like the wingtips of a strange bird. Now, all that remains to do is to pull up his high boots, to don and gird a heavy robe smelling of tar, and, of course, to put on his mask. This heavy white mask with reddish lenses over the eyes is stuffed with herbs, basil, thyme, garlic, rosemary, pepper, mint, marjoram, all finely chopped and tightly packed inside. The smell is so strong that an unprepared person would start feeling dizzy at once. A price he has to pay, a minor one compared to all he has to do. All those devoted to this craft have to. Nay, Richard is not a jester, nor, sleeper forbid, a cesspit cleaner. The gleaming glasses and heavy beak full of incense speak for themselves. The senator brother, Richard Murdoch, likes to call himself a soldier, and his battlefield lies within the cities and villages of Tantaria. His enemies, the invisible and ruthless plagues that harvest human lives year by year. Many would think of him otherwise, though. The senator walks down the street, and people move aside, frightened, not wishing to be touched even by his shadow. According to local superstition, which the Brotherhood of St. Elmo had been unsuccessful in eradicating, the shadow of a hangman, a gravedigger, or a senator could give disease to sinful people. But who can claim to be without sin these days? Even without personally killing people, in the eyes of terrorized citizens, Richard was both the sinner and the saint. He would verify the verdicts of fate and sign them, marking doors by chalking the sign of the cross upon them. His hands would cure, but they were also tainted with blood, and his clothes reeked of smoke. It was not he who would throw a torch into one's sickbed, who would nail down the doors and windows, who would wheel piles of corpses away on creaky cart in order to burn them, but still, through the red lenses of his mask, he could see the suffering of those visited by senators. Large families or singletons, rich and poor alike, none saw mercy from pestilence or from Richard. He had been offered money, but had never taken it. He had been begged, always remained silent. He had been cursed, but would simply move on to the next house. Richard is a senator, a plague doctor, such is the fee his job exacts. Today, unfortunately, more mournful labors are waiting for him. A few days ago, a sick man was found on Merchant's Lane, dying from bloody gashes on his neck, belly, and chest. His skin was cracking, his ichors mixed with blood oozed from his body, staining his clothes and adorning them like a horrible scarlet scarf. Since then, 17 more citizens have fallen ill, and the quarter has been quarantined. At the end of the street, before the entrance into the formerly clean and bright gingerbread quarter, the senator is greeted by a rude, slapdash barricade that looks as if it were built by the rabble-rousers, piling up junk to incite the people. There are planks, barrels, and every single cartwheel. Some wicked troublemaker had hung a dirty black cloth over it, and is now billowing in the wind like a cursed banner of infamy. This time, it was not the rioters who had built the defenses, but some negligent guardsmen who hadn't bothered to build a decent barricade. This was easy to understand, though, as boards and stones could rarely stop the plague, especially given the nighttime guests. The morticians carting the tarry sacks away, and the senators taking the sick to the infirmary. The guards' halberds are there to curb the marauders of avidity, nothing more. Two men are waiting for Richard right at the barricade. The small, skinny man is Brother Avis, in wondrously clean clothes, not at all stained with blood. The other, who seems even bigger next to his partner, is Brother Winfred, an executor, with a bludgeon and a short sword on his belt. Richard touches the brim of his hat as a greeting, and hurriedly asks the main question that had been nagging him for several days. Any response from Dolderberg?
The Raven returned before the dawn. Nothing reassuring. The malady is unknown. They recommend quarantine and rigorous measures.
The senator swings his hand resentfully, as if to grab the throat of the ones giving such orders.
If we can't stop it within a week, Resort will be closed.
Damn it! How can we stop an unknown plague in only a week? And what of the sick? How was the night?
3 died, and those ridiculous rumors about the scarlet scarf are spreading again. People say they've seen it on some houses.
Avis stops, then nervously shudders and moves his beak sideways, momentarily resembling a bird even more.
It's strange, but today, it seemed for a moment that there was something hanging from the weather vane.
It's just your fatigue, Avis. Get some rest. We've got an autopsy tonight.
Richard, do check those houses, just in case. The Waters, the Hines, and the Wigmars. You know where they live?
Richard nods in agreement, and the tip of his beak swings along his confrere's word. Remind me about the Hines.
The house is up the street. On the left. It's the one with tiger violets on the windowsill. Alright, Avis, we should get going.
Winfred starts to turn away, but stops, remembering something. By the way, Richard, are you armed? As usual, is there anything to beware out here?
Avis said he'd seen some marauders, but they fled. The guards wouldn't say anything.
I wonder if they were on the same side. The houses are filled with valuables here. Richard shrugs. That threat seems unsubstantial to him. I don't think they'd dare attack a brother.
Cornered rats bite, but personally, I don't believe in marauders that much.
Winfred, do I look like a liar to you?
Calm down, Avis. I mean, the ones you saw might not be human.
The senator hastily makes a protective sign.
Saber forbid! Better not even think that it could be the one hanging out the scarves.
A marauder or spirit, it's all the same. Both spread the disease. Anyway, it should all become clear tonight. Winfred lifts his hand in dismay, and it seems like he's grinning under the mask.
See you at the fortress.
May the Sleeper help you!
The brethren leave, and Richard follows the path, getting across the barricade and entering the plague's domain. He walks past guardsmen playing dice in front of 2 smoky pungent fires, and turns onto the lane. This is a shortcut to the houses marked with the mysterious scarlet ribbon, and Richard doesn't want to frighten the people who are trapped near the plague with his appearance. The streets that used to be so boisterous are now silent. Everything has ground to a halt in nervous expectation, and only the blithesome wind squeaks the weather vanes while throwing fallen leaves underneath Richard's feet. As if charmed by this unnatural silence, the senator moves quieter, but his steps are still echoing in the sulky twilight of the arcade. He'd be very surprised to meet someone else here. Richard stops for a moment, unable to believe his own eyes. In a narrow lane, a girl is playing with the leaves. Her bare feet and generously patched clothes betray her as a street urchin. How did she ever manage to find such an unsuitable playground? Hearing Richard's steps, she looks up, but doesn't even flinch. Could it be that no one had bothered to tell her the rumors about the senator's shadow?
Morning, Crow Man! What's the big nose you got?
What are you doing here, little girl? Were you begging here when the streets were cordoned off? Despite Richard's formidable looks and his unfriendly tone, the wife doesn't seem to be afraid. Wife? Waif? I'm hiding. It's quiet and comfy here. Are your friends gone? Can I come with you instead? It's a tainted place, and I'm visiting the dying. It's dangerous. What's your name? Have you got a place to stay until the end of the quarantine? Does she even know this word, quarantine? Huh. Well, regardless, her mournful tone sounds pretty convincing. Where could I stay? The hiding spots are scary. The Scarfer lurks around there. Still, would rather go with you, Crow. Please? Oh, we get choices. Ah. Okay. Driver away, let so follow. Driver away, let so follow. I'm gonna let her follow. Inwardly appreciating the wife's courage, Richard asks her sternly, "Aren't you afraid of catching the plague? What if I touch you with my shadow?" Keep your shadow to yourself, Crow. What should I be afraid of? It would be worse if I stay alone and walk around the houses out of boredom. I really should spank you, but how can I lay a hand on such a baby? Richard throws his arms up, thinking to himself for a moment before continuing. Sleeper, forgive you. Let's go then, but don't follow me into the houses, or I'll get angry. Oh, all right. I'll sit on the doorstep. And why is it you can go in, but I can't? There's no spare crow head for you. Sorry. The senator's joke doesn't seem to have impact. The wife apparently takes it at face value. I don't want Crow's head. Would it save you, though? You think the Scarfer will be scared? He must be scared of somebody, so why not us? We are the enemies of those like him, and our enmity has no quarter. So the Scarfer's not alone? Whoa, that's scary. Don't stay inside for too long. What if they all come here at once? Richard grunts skeptically, thinking to himself that it would be too easy. What nonsense! All at once? Honestly, I don't believe there's even one. Ah, so you don't? Well, let's go, then. He might show himself to you. I guess we'll go into each one. We do need to go to the Hinds. So let's go to that one. Tiger violets are quite conspicuous on the Hinds' windows, just as Winfred had said. Richard hears voices inside, and that's already a reason to be happy. It seems the woman is telling some children off for something, and there are footsteps and laughter. Children, not yet affected by the all-pervading terror. No malady has come here yet. No, the malady hasn't come here yet, but the scarf's proven to be a reliable indication. Richard must knock and ask. Married people live here, kind ones. It would be a pity if they fell ill. Ava says someone's been seen a scarlet scarf on their house. This should be checked. We may save some lives. The wife seems to be amazed by the news, despite recently assuring Richard herself that the scarfer is real. Where could it come from? Who'd hang it? The scarfer? As if you haven't heard that the infected houses are marked with it. Many have seen it. Still, I don't know who hangs them. Maybe the plague itself? It's happened before. The Scarfer was not made up from nothing. This indirect confirmation sparks Sil's curiosity.
So it happened before? Can you tell me, Crow? How can a plague be alive?
I'd tell you, but then you won't sleep at night.
I guess you're pulling my leg, but I'm not a fool. Just young. How can it be a living disease? I'd rather believe in a Scarfer walking around.
This naive attempt at provocation moves the senator, but for the sake of appearances, he decides not to surrender so quickly. Stay quiet for a bit, please. I'll check the house and then tell you if you must know. After a few knocks, the curtains open, and some frightened yet curious children stare at Richard. Someone fumbles with the lock behind the door, and at last it opens, but just a little, hesitating to let the scary guest inside.
What do you want, good brother?
Are you all well in here?
Thanks be to the sleeper, we're all right. No one is ill. The children have had their hands washed.
People say they've seen a scarlet scarf, the mark of the plague, on your house. Do you know anything about that?
The woman's voice trembles as if she's ready to curse and swear and burst into tears. Oh, Elmo, protect us. We haven't seen anything like that. Maybe it's Grandpa's bed cap drying outside. There it is, the red one.
Indeed, it looks like that from afar. You might take it off, though, so as not to call attention. It's a bad omen these days.
Yes, I will do that right away. Who would have thought?
The senator feels that something is not quite as it should be. That there's something apart from the plague that's frightened her. Have you seen anything suspicious, by the way? Maybe someone breaking the quarantine?
Oh, it was so scary last night. There were footsteps and rustling and it sounded like someone moaning. Must be the damn Scarfer dragging someone to the netherworld.
Rich sighs, wanting to shield his mind from this nonsense. Or some marauders dragging sacks of loot.
How could anyone be brave enough to make sure? What if he looks back at you and then breaks into your house?
The woman stammers, apparently imagining the scene in detail, and then, picking up her courage, continues louder and grumpier.
No, I won't look No, I myself won't look and won't let the children do so either. This is not the time for looking around.
Well, keep you safe and sound.
May the sleeper keep you, good brother.
In contrast to the polite farewell, the door immediately slams shut. People are not to be blamed for their superstitious fears. Even the senators themselves don't always know what brings maladies. And the commoners know much less. That's why Richard doesn't take offense at Mrs. Hine. Rather, he is glad that a possible casualty is averted for the moment. The wife, dangling her feet, waits for the senator while sitting on the steps across the street. When she catches sight of Richard, she smiles cunningly, as if she knew that all would end well. You shouldn't sit on cold stones. You'll catch a cold and won't ever have children. For a moment, Sarah looks serious and sad, but she immediately returns to her common, sly shamelessness.
Why should an orphan need children? You promised something, Gov. Do you remember?
If you get married, won't you stop being an orphan? Get up, or I won't tell you anything. Sighing, she obeys, following the rules of his game.
I'm getting up, all right. What about living diseases, huh?
There are two kinds of those. The summoned ones sent by maleficers, and self-born or equitable ones. They're all spirits, ex-humans, serving the plague maiden, Melamiliar. All are dangerous and blind, killing the guilty and innocent indiscriminately. But if to vanish the summoned illness, it's enough to kill the warlock that had casted it. The self-born one, on the other hand, will disappear when all the guilty are dead.
And you? Do you catch them?
Richard only shrugs his shoulder in response. Easy to say. We hunt maleficars, and the self-born ones are stopped only by quarantine. If we don't let the guilty escape, they'll die sooner or later, and the others will be saved. Don't you pity the people? We pity them a lot, but do we have a choice? If they scatter, there won't be any respite from the plague. Thousands died like that in the past, and whole regions were deserted. Now it's all done otherwise. Science! Seems like the senator's boasting doesn't impress Syl. She only laughs in response.
So that's how it is. Well, we'll see your science yet.
Aren't you brave, you little Dracodile? If you found a bubble yawn yourself, you'd run to the fortress right away. Yes, here are the Waters' doors. Richard's heard a bit about this prosperous family, who earns their wealth in cloth merchants. Some say their children stay at home only for a few days during the year, occupied with business affairs. Earlier, Richard thought it'd be a sign of human greed, but who knows, maybe it was better for them that way. Raising the knocker, Richard suddenly stops. Was it his imagination, or did a slight moan just come from inside the house? Holding his breath, he listens, hoping to prove his fears.
A dark, scary house. Aren't you afraid to go in?
A bit disgruntled with her intervening, the senator puts a finger to his beak, telling the wife to be quiet. Waif? Shh.
Can't you hear that? Someone's groaning inside. A woman sounds like.
Taking no notice of Syl, Richard pushes against the door with all his weight. It seems to be unlocked, yet it moves strenuously, like there's something behind it. The senator's frantic pushing meets with more resistance, as if someone's heaped up 4 flour sacks against the door from the inside.
Just cross the door and be done with it. Anyway, they're all dead in there, or you've really got a cure.
Breathing out heavily with each push, Richard still finds the time to answer. We don't do things that way in the Brotherhood. Don't you hear the moans? Someone is still alive.
You still can't cure her. No way you ever could, Crow. Maybe a scintilla would have a chance.
You could give me a hand instead. I can't leave her like that. If I can't save her, then I'll just put her to sleep and make her death peaceful. Syl giggles as if she's heard something amusing.
So that's what you like. Well, take that log and don't faff about. There's a sturdy one, good for a strut.
Thanks for that, oh wise wife. And don't even think to go after me. You'll get tainted.
What if the Scarfer snatches me while you're busy poisoning people in there?
Perhaps he might shorten that tongue of yours. The log really helps in cracking the door open. The log really helps in cracking the door open. When the senator gaps The log really helps in cracking the door. When the dark gap opens wide enough to enter, the senator fearlessly steps inside. No wonder the door was so hard to open. A heavy-set man died unlocking it, and his blood-stained body lies in the dark hallway. Someone is breathing heavily and sobbing inside the house. Richard can't find a candle, so he moves through the darkness of the strange house to open the shutters wide by unhinging the hook. His sensitive hearing picks up all sorts of tiny details: flies buzzing, leaves whispering outside, and a dripping sound. Oh, Richard does know what those drops are. Blood? Daylight illuminates the dying one. A bleeding woman lies limply among the sheets, and Richard, as he bends down to her, realizes he's useless here. The malady overtook her and her husband while they were asleep. It's terrible to imagine how they awoke from the pain, realizing in horror that soon they'd be dead. Judging by the red track leading to the door, Mr. Walter had found the strength to crawl to the entrance and call for help, but managed only to unbolt the door before dying. The chance he had wanted to give his wife was unreachable. Richard doesn't even try to inspect Mrs. Walter's wounds. Her bed and clothes are soaked with blood, and it's really a wonder she's still alive. Feverish sparks in her eyes and wide-blown pupils, nearly covering the iris. show clearly she is suffering, and she watches the senator steadily in hope of salvation. A phial with opium tincture appears from his gripsack. The bitter drops start falling one by one between her thirsty, bluish lips, enough to make her sleep and be relieved from unnecessary suffering. He can't afford to do any more than that. Not long ago, it was difficult for him to stay near to those whom he had refused to let live, but now Richard holds the weak hand of Mrs. Wilder as she is falling asleep until the vein in her neck stops pulsating. Yes, he could have awakened the shadow, plunged into those depths, and stretched a saving hand to the woman lying in front of him, tear her out of death's grasp. But he won't. Not because it is forbidden by the senator's regulations. Not because she is useless for him and for the Brotherhood. Not all can bear a life on the leash. A life near the one to whom you owe your salvation, and the one you cannot leave until your death. Mrs. Wilder wouldn't do. Leaving the now deserted house, Richard shuts the door tight and marks it with a white cross. At night, the morticians will wrap the bodies in tar-soaked hides and take them out of town to where the ashes of yesterday's fires are still smoldering. Thus far, it is still possible to burn the corpses.
So you're drawing it after all. How many died?
Grieved by the sight of death, the senator does not want to pretend to be carefree anymore. Why should you care? They're all dead. If you want to pilfer something there, forget it. I don't want the morticians to cart you away, too.
Cart me away? Ha! Well, if you say so, I won't go in. So who was that moaning?
The one who was is no more. We wouldn't have been able to get her to the hospital. And now it's over for her.
People call all of you crows murderers for some reason.
These simple words prick the senator's pride a lot, so he angrily rebukes the wife. Watch your mouth! Not all of us would forgive such riotous talk. We can't save everyone, yes. We have to be ruthless, because our enemy is that much crueler. Who, if not us? Still steps back, not expecting such an abrupt change in his mood, and raises her hands as if expecting Richard to lunge at her.
No offense, crewman. I didn't really mean it that way. A lot of people say so. You can't help it.
The senator has already steadied himself, and now feels awkward for shouting at this simple girl. He's trying to hide this uneasiness behind an expressly cold tone. Keep doing the job. Fools will wag their tongues. Don't listen to them. Better to ask those who were refused at the fortress in daytime and treated at night by people wearing crow masks.
I won't listen then. You only look wicked, but it's not true.
I swear I'll hit you with this stick.
All right, I'll be quiet.
Alright, we got the Wigmar's house now. A chalk drawn across can be seen on the door from afar, marking the house emptied by the plague. Richard stops at the entrance, pondering the situation. What could a scarlet scarf on an already death-marked house mean? Maybe someone was hiding inside and has now become ill?
Have you guys been here yet? Left someone behind?
No, we never do that. They won't board up the healthy ones. Maybe we got the wrong house?
It's not wrong. Look, the scratches on the door are fresh, not from nails.
The wife's remark catches the senator off guard. Until the last moment, he hadn't wanted to believe that someone would really go around stealing things from the infected quarters. Where? Oh, those stupid people! The boards were used by the morticians to close up the door have been surreptitiously detached. No need to guess who it could be. The marauders! Fools wishing to steal valuables from the infected houses, counting on dumb luck. You'd better hide, girl. Who knows what's on their minds now? They may still be in there.
And you, Crow? Call your brethren!
These thieves could flee while I look for help. No, I won't back off, but you can run and call the guards. It seems the Senator's courage does not boost Still's confidence.
And what if they kill you in there?
A man can die but once. I'm a brother after all. We don't die that easy. Now run! The broken door creaks pitifully, letting the beak-faced doctor in. He has left his grip sack near the entrance, and now he holds his faithful cane in both hands, ready to meet the desperate marauders, or the scar for himself. But these precautions prove quite unneeded. Richard can see a semi-supine figure by the open dresser. Nearby, an open sack with some belongings lies abandoned. Apparently, it won't be of use to the thief anymore. The senator approaches the wretch cautiously, but the pool of blood around him indicates the man is surely dead. His face is twisted with deadly terror, and his pose shows that he was surprised by someone. But who could that be? The malady had developed so rapidly that he could hardly sit up. The senator finds a candle end in the kitchen and carefully examines the body. Each day, the malady seems to grow more virulent, killing its victims faster, ever faster. The senator finds a candle end in the kitchen and carefully examines the body. Each day, the malady seems to grow more virulent, killing its victims ever faster, and Richard knows that diseases don't normally work like this. At least the ordinary diseases don't. After making sure that the dead body bears no signs of assault, and that any accomplices have fled, the senator leaves the twice cursed house. He must inform the brethren at the fortress. Maybe the acolytes will have time to prepare his body for the evening autopsy. Richard has no doubt that it must be done. Now he has to calm down the guards. Minute after minute passes, and there is still nobody on the street. No whistles, no clatter of rough boots on the pavement. Has something happened to the girl? Has she been caught? The wife is alive and apparently sound. She sits in the same lane where Richard found her the first time, her face in her knees, and she seems to be sobbing. Could the guards have offended the wife? Certainly, one could have pushed her with the butt end of a spear. That could be what could be simpler. No one would intercede for her, and she can't protect herself. Hearing Richard's steps, she raises her eyes and smiles timidly. She's glad to see the senator in one piece. Hey, you're right. Why didn't the guards come? Sarah answers, swallowing her tears and trying to smile.
Your guards are fools. They didn't even listen to me. But you're alive. Alive!
Of course I'm alive. Those guys had already fled. At least some of them.
And those who didn't?
One's lying in there. We'll collect him for an autopsy by the evening. Well, don't repeat his mistake. Don't go into the houses. It seems the incident has impressed her enough to stop joking around.
No, I won't. It's better outside.
The senator looks at the wife's patched clothes and realizes that he must do something for her. Not so many little girls can confront him like that, after all. You'll be really cold at night. I'll bring you something to eat.
Don't trouble yourself, kind crow. You have a lot going on anyway. Good people will feed me, as always.
As long as the quarter is quarantined, still can't get out. Should he make sure that she won't be driven out from whatever shelter she might find? Yes. Perhaps later. If that's so, then may the sleeper save you.
May he save you, Crow.
Richard goes to the guards' outpost, about to tell them off for neglecting their duties. It's one thing to play dice when the streets are quiet, but it's quite another to drive away a child who's asking for help, not to mention the interests of the Brotherhood, which are being affected too. But his anger is met with incomprehension. Richard chafes and rubs the pavement with his stick. The guards just stare at each other and shrug their shoulders. From the start of the morning, there was not a soul on the streets, no wives. Waifs. I'm just gonna pronounce it wife. No wives, no little girls calling for help. The senator wouldn't believe them at a different time, but now he backs off. The guards seem not to be lying. Could the girl have lost her courage and just lied to him about coming up to the guards? She indeed might have. Most likely the poor thing was sitting there, blaming herself for cowardice, thinking that the senator might get killed because of her. Well, all's well that ends well, right? He shouldn't return to Scorter, should he? Richard must report back to the fortress before continuing vain labors at the hospital. More fruitless efforts to retain the lives trickling from dying bodies. Trying again and again. Failing again and again. Until the sun hides behind the pointy roofs, and the cool breeze of the evening brings a short respite to the patients desperately gasping for air. Alright guys, we're going to leave it here. This is becoming ever so mysterious, and I love it. There's a scarfer. There's a little girl that I could have said go away or come with me. I wonder what would have happened if I had sent her away. I like the girl. The uppity little thing she is. Well, got a little bit of a tongue on her. So, if you guys like this, hit that button. Subscribe if you want more. And comment what you think is going to happen next. This is Bepev Romando signing out. See ya.